Let's be real. This is a make it or break it season for Nebraska. The Huskers have got to win at least 8, 9, 10 plus games to have that breakout season that Matt Rhule's been hyping up since he got hired here. And honestly, when you look at the roster, it's good enough. The quarterback play is very much improved. The wide receivers are some of the best in America. This defense is still very, very solid. And then when you look at the film from last year, when you rewatch the games, you look over the statistics, there are some issues that constantly pop up, some huge flaws that we can't afford to happen again. So in today's video, I've dug deep. I've come up with 7 improvements that Nebraska must make. It's completely imperative that they do all 7 in order to have a successful season in 2025 or else. So really quick, this is a fun video. 7 improvements Nebraska must make in order to be successful. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan, this is the place for you for daily Husker content. It's a no-brainer. Takes 2 seconds. Join this family. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it. Going over the 7 improvements that Nebraska must make this season in order to win 7, 8, 9, 10 plus games. You know, this video is not going to be very surface level. I'm not going to say, oh, a player needs to improve, a positional group needs to improve, a coach needs to improve. No, we're digging deeper than that. We're going into the film. We're going into the statistics. We're being very, very specific and particular in this video. So let's get things started with the first thing that Nebraska must improve in 2025 in order to have a successful season, in order to make a run for the college football playoff, to break out in a big way. This is none other than the turnover margin. Because this has honestly been one of Nebraska's biggest failures over the past couple of years, whether it was with Matt Rhule or even Scott Frost. Our defense has always preached taking the football away, having momentum swings, and that's never happened. You go back to last year, we only forced 1.3 turnovers a game. That's not even top 60 in America. That's unacceptable. Especially with Tony White as our defensive coordinator back in the day. He always preached physicality, always preached being aggressive, taking the ball away, and it just never happened. It never happened on game day. John Butler, he does the exact same thing. Can he change that for Nebraska? Because honestly, you want to know the reason why Nebraska, they can never win close games is because we can never get that clutch turnover, that clutch interception, that clutch forced fumble that happens in the very end of the game, you know, where we can get a walk-off field goal. That never happens to us. That happens to other teams, but not us. And that's because our defense, frankly, they're not aggressive enough. They don't know how to force turnovers, not stripping the ball. They're not jumping routes. That needs to change with John Butler's. This defense needs to be improved in a lot of aspects. We talk about this defense like it's honestly been, you know, great. It really hasn't been. It's been really solid in the run shopping department, but it can't stop the pass and it can't force turnovers. That needs to change this year. Number 2. The thing that Nebraska needs to change. Let's go to the offense, because the offense had a lot of problems last year. I'm hoping Dana Holgorsen can do this. We need to be more explosive as an offense. I'm going to give you some jarring statistics. Okay. Last year, Nebraska only had 52 plays the entire season that were over 20 yards. Only 52. That's 81st in America. Even more jarring, Nebraska only had 2 plays the entire year that were over 50 yards. That is tied for second worst in America. How is that even possible? And I understand Marcus Satterfield was our offensive coordinator. Matt Rhule, say what you want about him, but he's a very conservative head coach. Okay, that can't happen, especially with a 5-star quarterback at the helm, with Dylan Riles deep ball with he can throw it 60, 70 yards down the field. How do we not have aggressive plays? How do we not have trick plays? How do we not get guys who are speedsters like a Jalen Lloyd back in the day? We couldn't get Malachi Coleman involved. That needs to change this year. We need to, get a guy like Demitrius Bell, Jacory, Barney, even Dane who are deep ball threats involved. Get those 50, 60-yard chunk plays. It just never happened for Nebraska. So I just don't know why we're being so conservative all the time. That really shows up on game day. That's why Nebraska, they just don't trust this offense very well, because we don't have that big play that can really change momentum of a ball game. The best teams can. We're just not one of those best teams. Nebraska, they need to be more explosive as an offense. We need to stop being so conservative. Third thing that Nebraska must do, let's keep it with the offense. Our red zone has been so bad over the past couple of years. Okay, when we get inside the 20, even the 15, the 10, we can't score. We can't score a touchdown. And honestly, we can't even score field goals inside the 10 with some of our special teams issues. And I'll throw out another statistic at you that's completely jarring. Last year, when we were inside the red zone, we only had a 73% scoring rate. So inside the 20, we only scored 73% of the time. We either had a turnover or we missed a field goal those other times. That's great. That's so low. Okay. Our touchdown rate inside the red zone was only 46%, which is also very low. That's 13th worst in America. So again, moving the ball last year honestly wasn't a problem for Nebraska. They could get inside the red zone. They could really make plays. But when, the game got tight and we needed a touchdown, we were inside the 10, we could never make it happen. Okay. That kills ball games. That kills those close games. Okay. When you get inside the red zone, how can you actually get in the end zone? How can you make plays? How can a guy like Dylan Riles step up? Emmett Johnson step up? Maybe a big jump ball receiver who can go up and get a ball in the corner. Okay. For whatever reason, Nebraska can't score in the red zone. And it happened not only with Matt Rhule, but also in the Scott Frost era. That needs to change this year. When you're that close to the end zone, make it count. Get points on the scoreboard. Number 4. This is very particular. This is for Dylan Raiola. His quarterback efficiency must improve because his arm's going to make or break ball games in 2025. We know Dana Holgerson, we're going to be throwing the football a lot more. He can't throw 11 interceptions again. Statistically, he was one of the worst. He was one of the least efficient quarterbacks on late downs, whether it's third or fourth down. He was very inefficient when the pocket broke down as well. So again, he needs to change it. He needs to be a lot more efficient. Again, our third down conversion rate was super, super bad. Fourth down conversion rate was super bad. He can't throw 11 interceptions like we just said. So from a Dylan Raiola standpoint, needs to be a lot more comfortable on those late downs, especially when the game gets tight, when it's the fourth quarter. Needs to be more comfortable when the pocket breaks down and get outside the pocket, maybe make a play. And also, he needs to throw at least a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio at the very minimum. At the very minimum, I need him to throw at least under 10 interceptions. If he does anything more than that, we need to have some tough conversations. So he needs to be a lot more efficient as a quarterback. Number 5, this is the big one. And this has honestly been the biggest failure for Matt Rhule so far. When we hired Matt Rhule, it was all about him building a culture here, building a culture of excellence, discipline, and that just really hasn't happened. Last year, from a penalty standpoint, we were still one of the worst in America. We had 6.3 penalties a game, which I believe was one of the 20th worst in America, something around that. That needs to stop. That can't happen again. Okay, you want to know why Nebraska loses close games, particularly against Iowa? Iowa every single year has some of the least penalties in America. Okay, Iowa doesn't make mistakes, but Nebraska does. And that kills drives, it kills momentum, it kills everything. Okay, Matt Rhule, Matt Rhule always preaches discipline, but on game day just doesn't show up. That needs to change this year. We can't have 6.3 penalties a game, especially these holding penalties that'll just derail drives. We'll be driving down the field, easily. Dylan Raiola's arm's really going to be showing off. It's a 1st and 10, inside the 30. We have a big holding penalty, then it's 1st and 20, and that just ruins everything. And then we miss the field goal because we're incompetent on special teams. Okay, we can't have 6.3 penalties a game. That's unacceptable. It's one of the worst in the country. That happened with Scott Frost, happened with Mike Riley, happened with Matt Rhule. That needs to change. Playoff teams don't have penalty issues. Point blank. Speaking of special teams, let's be honest. This special teams unit, it needs to improve. That's the only position group we'll talk about in this video. We need a better kicker. We need to find our guy. Whether it's Kyle Quinton, who's a transfer from Cal, whether it's Tristan Ovano, can he finally break out? Whether it's John Hull, who I'm not super high on. I know some people really started to like John Hull. He still struggled even when the snaps were good last year. I don't care who it is. Find a competent kicker because good teams, once again, they don't have kicking issues. They just don't. They don't have kicking issues. Nebraska needs to figure that out because it's going to lose you so many games in the Big Ten. They're going to come down, to the wire a lot of times. Whether it's against Illinois or even Northwestern, it's going to be close. And losing, missing 1 or 2 field goals, that's really going to kill you. It's really going to kill you. We cannot have that happen again. Mike Eckler needs to figure that out. And also at the same time, find your punter. Find your punter. We had, Brian Buschini, he was sawed, but he wasn't a top 10 punter in America last year. Okay, he was really, his highs were high, his lows were low. We need to find a consistent punter who can boom about 50, 60 yards and absolutely flip the script. Last thing, Nebraska must improve on the football field from a statistic standpoint, is our sack rate. We had one of the worst sack rates in America last year. Again, we talk about this defensive line like it was heroic. Ty Robinson, phenomenal player. Nash, phenomenal player. Jamari Butler, phenomenal player. Our defensive line really wasn't that good last year. It was great in the run-stopping department, but we only averaged 2 sacks a game. That was 74th in America, one of the worst in the Big Ten. These quarterbacks have so much time. And honestly, our secondary wasn't very good, but it really wasn't their fault because no matter how good our secondary was, when the quarterback has 5, 6, 7 seconds in the pocket, somebody's going to get open eventually. So at the end of the day, we got picked apart against some of the worst teams in the Big Ten. USC picked us apart with a quarterback who was starting for the first time. UCLA picked us apart for whatever reason. Okay, the sack rate needs to improve. We need to get to the quarterback quicker so they have less time in the pocket. I need a guy like Raylan Van Poppel to break out. I need a guy like Cameron Leonard to break out. I need Williams Winery to live up to his 5-star potential. I need a guy who's a potentially double-digit sack guy. Can that be Keona Davis? We need at least 35 total sacks on the season. That's a game changer. We need to have that because if we can't get to the quarterback consistently, these defenses are just not going to take the next level. It just isn't. It's not going to be a top 10 defense in America. And honestly, in order to be a playoff team, we probably need to be at least top 10, at least top 15 from a defensive standpoint. So, all right, guys, those are the 7 statistics, film things that Nebraska needs to improve in 2025 in order to have a successful season, in order to win 7, 8, 9, 10 games like we're expecting. Let me know your thoughts down below about everything. What are you thinking? What do you think Nebraska needs to improve at? Let me know in the comment section. Hey, if you made this far in the video, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go Matt Rhule, and I'll see you in the next one.